Greetings, I'm Lisa Jacobs, and I'll be presenting today about my superintendent internship project. So where is YC? I work at Yamhill Carlton School District, which is a small rural area school district located in the Willamette Valley in northwest Oregon. And the school district actually unites Yamhill and Carlton, two small towns, both populations somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people. And who is YC? Well, majority of the residents are farmers. We have a huge agricultural industry around here, seed growers, but winery, vineyards is the biggest part of it. So we also have a smaller portion of residents who drive to the local towns and even into Portland at times. The school district is actually composed of an elementary school, which is kindergarten through 4th grade, an intermediate school, 5th through 8th grade, which is where I teach, and finally the high school, which offers a 5th-year program. So what are the challenges? Like any school district, Yamhill Carlton School District has challenges. About 3 years ago, we had a new superintendent come aboard, and he had the regional ESD take care of some surveys and collect some data on feedback from parents and testing scores and things like that. So one of the things that was a big challenge, or perceived to be a challenge about the school district from the community, was the lack of rigor, not challenging tag students, and making sure we were differentiating instruction for higher students and to meet all students' needs. And then we also had to worry about the perception of parents seeing their kids being productive and working. In a small town, sometimes we get into the habit of not looking at what's working. This is the way it's always been done. And right here, right in the middle, we definitely need to make sure we are aligned to Common Core and next generation science standards. So those are some of our challenges. As we look at the data on that, our really biggest challenge are meeting the needs of specific subgroups. So we're going to be looking at math and science today. And one thing you need to note as we start to look at this graph is this is only 90%. This does not go all the way up to 100%, which can be very misleading if you're just looking at the graph from this overall perspective. So some of the students that we are not meeting the needs of are these blue and orange lines, which and the green lines to some extent. So the blue lines are students with special needs. We are severely underserving our students with special needs in math. Hispanic population is also underserved. However, we are a very small school district, and so underserving the Hispanic population could mean 1 or 2 students total. The other thing we need to note is the students of poverty. There's this green line right here. They are definitely not at the same standard as the general class, and that has actually increased over time as we have moved through the recession, and we're still having to meet those needs and to change things up to do that. Science, very similar pattern. It is a little bit higher because this is the 100%. So it is a higher level, but as you can tell, the students with disabilities, students of poverty, and the Hispanic population are being underserved, which we need to address. Because our scores in general are lower, what we're doing is looking at a holistic approach, and then individual teachers are taking and tackling specific subgroups in their goals to make sure students' needs are being met. So what are our needs? The needs that we're going to be focused on in this specific project have been focusing on the alignment of Common Core state standards for math and next generation science standards. Basically, what we need to do is, as STEM becomes a big push for the future, we are going to look specifically at math and science. If we can incorporate some technology and engineering, we will do so. But we need to really be aligned with these standards so our students can do well and be prepared for smarter balance as it comes up, and eventually the new testing for next generation science standards. So that leads us to SMART goal number 1, which by April 2015, YC grades 5 through 8, we are just focusing on the intermediate school, will be aligned with Common Core state standards in math, including scope and sequence, to cover the standards, making sure everything is aligned, and that we have the standards are being met during this transitional period. So if it was currently taught in the 6th grade, we are going to make sure that, and it's now a 7th grade standard, we're going to make sure that we are getting those needs met of those students and preparing them for the bigger picture. As far as science, grades 6 through 12, we're going to incorporate intermediate school and high school, and we will align to the next generation science standards, developing scope and sequences, and again, covering the standards during those transition years to be fully implemented by 2016, 2017. Smarter goal 2, we really had to break this down. The last goal, the SMART goal 1, is really either we have it aligned or we don't have it aligned. We have the scope and sequence or we don't have the scope and sequence as far as measurability. So our second goal involves how do we actually make sure we're meeting students' needs, how are we getting raising test scores and really bringing things up. So to do this, by May of 2015, each teacher will have used at least one new instructional strategy multiple times. And based on the student needs, they will be placed in intervention classes or a class, and at least one school-wide extracurricular activity will be offered for math and science, and this is just school-wide. So anybody who wants to take part in some additional activities in math and science, that is available to them. So our plan. First part of the plan is the math scope and sequence, and the science scope and sequence. And then we also need to have those improved standardized testing improvement in the students through the interventions, the instructional strategies, and the extracurricular. And that's both for math and science. All right, so let's break this down a little bit. So math scope and sequence, these are the breakdown on how this is going to happen, or how this has in the process of happening. So to ensure 5-8 grades are aligned, teachers in the building are going to be working with Michael Fisher, who is the principal. One of the things that we need to know is that Michael Fisher was hired specifically because he has expertise in math, has also conducted professional development in math, and is very familiar with Common Core state standards in math. So between his expertise and the expertise of our teachers, we're going to develop that scope and sequence. And then we will also, the math curriculum that we currently adopted is very much aligned with Common Core state standards and already comes with formative assessments to monitor students' progress, and it also has the summative assessments. But ultimately, the way this is going to be, it's a much bigger picture, so we need to use that bigger assessment that we're using, and that would be Smarter Balance as that data starts to come out each year. As far as the interventions, the instructional strategies, and the extracurricular, the interventions, teachers are able to use their own lessons as with math, but we also have IXL, so students can brush up on their math and work independently on IXL, or teachers can see what their deficiencies are specifically through this program and help intervene on that. Individual students' needs, regular formative assessments to continue, as well as the summative assessments through the curriculum that's already set, and then of course Smarter Balance. So instructional strategies. We've already had professional development in August to work on some rigorous units, design rigorous units. We've also, during that class, learned some smaller classroom strategies to really focus students in. Our evaluation system provides a circle of feedback for our staff members, and any new teachers are in our mentoring program. So. Learning and developing formative assessments has also been integrated. A couple of a year or so ago, we had the ESD come and help us set up some common formative assessments. So most of the staff has been trained on that, except for the new ones, but they are getting what they need through the mentoring program. So the extracurricular activities, one of our staff members, Michael Bueller, he's a 5th grade teacher, has assumed the math club part of it and has developed a club. They're called the Denominators, and they meet every Monday and Thursday, and will be participating in competition in the spring, and that is offered for all 5th through 8th grade students. So let's turn to science now. Science scope and sequence development, we are going to do that 6 through 12. So myself, as pretty much the only science teacher in the 5-8 building, and if any of the 5th or 6th grade teachers who are still in more of a self-contained integrated science model, I will probably be working mostly with the high school, and then a former science teacher who is currently at TOSA. And we will team up and develop that scope and sequence to ensure that the overlaps are taken care of. We will also make sure that we each have our own strategies. So I've been teaching for quite some time. We have a new young and highly involved teacher, and we have another gentleman who's done a lot of curriculum work, so that helps out a lot. And then we also will have to develop our own formative assessments. We have no curriculum adopted, so we will have to develop our own formative assessments as well as in-house summative assessments. However, in the last several years I have compiled some test questions that would work to resemble an OAKS for the in-between years. So science testing only happens in 5th and 8th grade, so we can actually assess the kids during that 6th and 7th year to make sure they are making progress towards that 8th grade standard. And currently science is still focused on using OAKS for the standardized testing, and will be until 18-19. That's when the state has decided that we'll have an assessment ready for science. As far as standardized, to improve the standardized testing through intervention, instructional, and extracurricular, the interventions are basically whatever the instructions, the teachers, the instructional people are willing to do. So we can create intervention lessons as we give formative assessments during our class time, but then we also can offer after school time if students need it. And we do give regular formative assessments, but as I said, as we move towards next generation, those assessments will have to match our new the new standards and make sure we can target our instruction to what the students need. And again, summative assessments will be created and aligned with and preparing kids for OAKS for the time being. Improved instructional strategies. Same thing as with math. Teachers have been offered the opportunity in professional development in August, feedback through the evaluation system, mentoring for new teachers, and we've gone through or will continue to go through training on common formative assessments. And extracurricular. I take on extracurricular activities. I provide Tuesdays and Friday science club practice. We prepare for and participate in the BPA Science Bowl competition in the end of January, and then we also participate in Science Olympiad competitions. Last year was our first year trying that, and this year we are going to do it again. There was a great interest in that. So reflection. So challenges. I looked at this from the superintendent perspective, from my project perspective, but also from the school district perspective. So lining to the standards is a big, important step in making sure our students are prepared for the future. We will have, knowing that it has to be lots of different grade levels and lots of different people in the school district, that can present a challenge. And one of the things that we have are limited resources in a small school district. One science teacher does not allow for common formative assessments. I give this formative assessments and have to rely on myself to adjust to what the students need. We do not have a specific curriculum in science. So that is stuff we've been self-generating and hope to move towards something in the future. And also, a challenge is that I'm a teacher, so doing this internship in a teacher position is very different from doing it in an administrative position. As far as the superintendent goes, they are ultimately responsible, and that's one of the things I had not realized, that the whole district is their responsibility, and every decision they make affects the people they work with, and more importantly affects the students. And sometimes it's really challenging when you have to make a choice. Do we fix a leaky roof, or do we provide the training we need so our teachers can teach the students what they need to and how they need to? The pressure that standardized tests give on a superintendent, or put on a superintendent, is very concerning, and whether it's perceived by the community or not, their success or failure is usually based on perception. And so that's something that was interesting to me. And finally, it was really surprising how many administrative duties I have as a teacher. So my internship hours were having to be fulfilled outside of my day, but there were quite a few meetings, things that I attended, professional developments that I was able to use towards this, as well as the additional hours to help make sure that I was meeting those internships hours. And then in a small school district, lots of different people wear lots of different hats, and I think that was one of the things that helped me earn my hours, is I do a lot of different things for students, and others in the smaller school districts do the same thing, because we all want to make sure the students are being successful. So I'd like to make sure I acknowledge the school district for helping out, supporting me. Shereen Klein, the superintendent, was my mentor. Michael Fisher, my in-building mentor, and then finally Marta Turner, who did all the data preparation for the data used in this project. So thank you very much.